This is Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley, a podcast that explores the feelings, emotions, and experiences of what it means to be human in this world. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references if you need support.
And before you dive in, please like, subscribe, comment, share with anyone you think might also connect with today's session. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible, and we are endlessly grateful for your continued support. So, let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. I'm Ashley. Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It was just, there's a lot of flair in that one.
I'm trying to get better at my intros.
I like it.
Well,
it's very dramatic.
Well, normally I'm like, I just try to get through it without laughing and messing it up. So I'm trying to be hello.
Hello. Well,
Okay.
she's Ashley.
Yeah.
And I'm Sara Cate.
Today we're gonna have a discussion that I'm really excited about because I talk about body image a lot with my clients. And we're going to have a discussion about body image, and a little bit more specifically, body image in conjunction with determining what is actually something that we want. So we're going to use the term discernment. And when I'm going to give it a little quick example, but we're going to go into it, is like, you're scrolling on Instagram and you see this person do Pilates, and then they to you look beautiful and you want to look like them, and then all you hear is like, I got to do Pilates, and really you might hate Pilates. And it might not be for you, but you get inundated then with everything then you see on Instagram is everybody doing Pilates, and it becomes in your like vision, right? Yep. The only way to get to where you want to be, and you forget to ask yourself if you actually like it, if it actually feels good in your body, if it's actually something that you want to continue doing. So,
yes. Ashley, would you give a brief definition of discernment in it just in itself? Like kind of in relationship to what we're talking about in the body, but like what discernment means when working with our bodies.
Yeah, I think it's like, okay, so like super simple. Yeah. Oh, can it be super simple? I might have just screwed that up.
But like, okay, yes, and it's a yes and super simple and deeply personal.
Yeah. So, because I was just going to say, like, discernment is like, do I want it in my body or do I not? Or am I telling myself that I want it in my body because of something else that I'm hearing, but it's not really mine?
Yeah.
And that might, again, I don't even know if that's simple. That might just have caused a lot more questions.
Well, I think it's like the inquisition of, does this feel quote unquote good?
Yeah.
Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel pleasurable?
Yes.
Does it feel, am I feeling what I believe that I want to feel? Am I feeling how I want to feel in my body?
So, and I think okay. So when we say, you just made a really good distinction, because I say, and I talk about feeling good in my body a lot. And that's a really hard thing to understand. And when I work with
very self-defining.
Yes. And when I work with clients, they often were starting from a place where like they are unsure of how even to begin this conversation with their body. So to be able to then determine, okay, but this feels good and this feels bad, is a pretty big jump, And I think that it can feel really overwhelming to say like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to know what it feels like to feel good in my body. And I always think back to this because it's just such a poignant time in my life where funny that I brought up Pilates earlier. It's only because we talked about Pilates before this session, but this is what I'll say. When I started doing Pilates, working with like I'm a Pilates instructor. And when I started working with my Pilates mentor, that was the first time in my entire life. And I was 30 or 31, no, that's a lie. 29, 28. I don't know, around 30 was the first time that I really understood what it meant like to be in my body, moving it in a safe way that felt good. And it was like, that moment I was like, oh, I get it. I get it and then I had a place to work from, right? But it wasn't until then, like I was moving through things trying to figure it out, but then it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And now then, so I'm going to like jump ahead because to now, because I have learned what feels good to me in my body, I have so much more, well, connection to it, but so much more power in an agency over my life and what I will allow for my body and what I won't. And that doesn't mean that it's perfect. That doesn't mean that like I don't scroll Instagram and I'm like, oh, damn, that's what I should be doing. Or like, I don't do that and I should. And even though that way of working out, we'll say, is what is being pushed, that doesn't mean that sometimes I'm not like, oh, I got to conform to that and I got to do that because that's what's going to get me the results, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. However, what I think is important to know is that the more you practice connecting into this, the more you are just curious about what this might look like for you, the more agency you're going to get.
100%. You know, and as you're saying all of that, what's coming up in my awareness is that like, yes, the first point of understanding what is quote unquote good or bad. And I typically tend to avoid those words in my practice because we avoid the things that are bad. And I like to use the designation of comfortable, uncomfortable, because we're even if we're talking about exercise, right? Like there's some level of discomfort in exercise. There's some level of this is hard, this is uncomfortable, my body's working in a way I'm not used to, or it's unfamiliar, whatever it might be. Or like even our own discomfort can come from our thoughts about like, I don't know how to do that. So that's embarrassing. And I don't want to embarrass myself, right? There's all of these layers of that. But to be able to like drop into that relationship piece first of like, what is my relationship to my body? And if I don't have that entry point, that's where we get to start to get curious, because we can be faced with, so I was telling Ashley, I was like, I literally I'm planning a trip. And so I decided to get on TikTok for that because it is a great resource for that shit, but it is overwhelming. And I was like, no less than 10 slides. It was like, you should do Pilates. You should do weightlifting. You should do this diet. You should do 30 grams of protein. You should exercise fasted. Like it was just contradictory. And I was like, no one could decipher then through Instagram, through TikTok, whatever it might be, what is actually for them. And that is where that discernment piece comes in. But that is implying that you have some type of relationship to your body. That is implying, you know, it has taken me years of physical movement between yoga and HIIT and cardio and to build a relationship to like what I like, what I don't like, how my body wants to move, how my body doesn't want to move. And unfortunately, that's come through some injury and that's come through some pain. And I have to really get comfortable with being uncomfortable and being in those uncomfortable conversations with my body to be like, oh, you don't like to move in this way. Like it isn't your way of movement, right? And like that is sometimes that's a hard thing to accept when it comes to like, oh, I don't actually really like that. And it's what the world is telling me or the internet or someone I look up to or admire, like, you know, and that's where I wish there was more of this flexibility of language when people are presenting these things where there's this encouragement, like there's just like all of these like influencers or and some of them are backed by science, sure, but again, that isn't science for everybody.
Exactly. And
I wish there was more flexibility in that language to say, and maybe sit with this and see
Mhm.
how you feel, see how your body responds to it. And this might not be your way.
Yes.
Right. And if there
Yeah.
is, go look at for other resources. But
Yep.
there's these absolutes that we like live in. And a lot of those people don't have like the knowledge base, or
Mhm.
like they've studied one thing there, so they're going to speak about that one thing to you in
Mhm.
this absolute, i.e. how cults start, but like they're going to tell you that this is the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
man, like it's not the way
Yeah.
for everybody. And
Well,
when you do the work that Ashley and I do, where we see so many different people in so many different bodies, we can recognize that. But it's the
mhm.
people that do one thing and only work with one type that are going to preach to you this thing.
Mhm. And okay, so I think that there's a couple things that I want to mention. I think that we do need experts in every single field, because if
Amen.
I like a very benign example is if I decide that I want to be the best friggin' kettlebell swinger in the land, I better go learn from somebody who is an expert in kettlebell fitness, right? Makes sense.
Mine
Obvious.
would be a flame spinner.
Okay. Let's, but I'm actually like,
Just giving you an
how do we
example.
find somebody to get to your house tonight to start this training?
Do we want to give me flames that
Yes.
twirl?
Yes.
You encourage these crazy thoughts. Okay. Anyways, keep going. The best kettlebell swimmer, spinner, swinger. Me, it's flame spinner, but yes.
Yeah. So okay, so we need those people, right? But I think
Yeah.
that this is where, and this is what I think a lot of us struggle with when it comes to diet, when it comes to working out, when it comes to anything to do with health, is we see these research articles come out. And for that group of people, it might have worked really, really well. But what we don't take enough time doing is, well, first of all, most of us aren't actually educated in how to determine if a research study is a study that we should pay attention to, right? Because there are
Right,
different levels
exactly.
of research
Yes,
that
exactly.
the typical like person walking around hasn't had a statistics and research level based education, which is fine. But that just tells us that we need to pay even more attention to what actually works in our body. But what happens is, because there are experts, right? Because we have somebody who is a quote nutritionist, because we have somebody who is a nutritionist who specializes in XYZ, that we need to listen, or a doctor who specializes in XYZ, right? That we need to listen 100% to what they do, and we shut down anything that our body is telling us, because this person sitting in front of us has more education and has more knowledge on this. And so we
Yeah.
listen to them. But what we forget is there is zero, no one, nobody on this planet knows your body better than you know your body, regardless of if you're paying attention to it or not. There
Totally.
is no one on this planet that knows your body like you. And so you might get some really good information from some of these
Yeah.
experts. You might.
Well, yes, you could get the good information. And then what happens if you take that information and you're like, it doesn't really feel like it's working.
Exactly. That's exactly. Yes. You might get like, wow, like your mind might be blown about how something works, right? Or how something helped somebody. And then
It's
you go to
supposed
do
to
it
work.
yes. And then you go to do it yourself and you're like, man, I get that. I can see how that was helpful for them. I can see blah, 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 but it's not for me. And that's okay. But I don't think that we get the messages that like, that it's okay to question even.
Oh, and any good practitioner, this is an opinion. Disclaimer, fucking opinion. Okay. But any practitioner worth their weight in salt is going to take your feedback and say, okay, let's look at other alternatives. Okay. You're telling me, like when my clients are like, man, that exercise, that didn't really work. I'm like, okay, that's not one for you then. That's not the type of breath work, or that's not the type of visualization that
Yep.
works.
Yep.
Right. So like, I have to be willing to listen to what they're telling me did or did not work for their body.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's on me to be like, then we have to look at alternatives. Yep. I just listened to very briefly, and I want to listen to the whole thing, but Glennon Doyle's sister, I'm losing her name right now, but anyways, she went to the doctor. They didn't find anything on her mammogram, but she still felt wrong. And she said, I want a second opinion. And she ended up just having, I believe, a double mastectomy, right? Like, because they found out she did in fact have breast cancer. And there was this, and she was like, I was so afraid to like say I want a second opinion, but like, had she not done that, but she felt that like whatever the information that was given to her right off the bat didn't sit. It didn't sit with her. And like any good doctor and any good practitioner is going to be like, we've got to learn to get our egos in our expert fields out of our way enough to hear people say, man, like Ashley was saying, you are the expert on your body. If it doesn't click, if it doesn't connect, if it isn't for you, you got to say it. Right.
Yeah. And I
gotta be able to hear it.
Exactly. Yeah. There needs to be, it's so interesting because I think about like in PT school, there's these things called clinical prediction rules.
Yeah.
And honestly, it made me like, we had to memorize them. And it was like, if somebody walks in with, to be honest, I don't, thank God. Well, if any of my PT professors are listening, I'm sorry, but they're stupid. No. But it was like, if somebody walks in with low back pain, and like these 5 symptoms, you do this. This is the treatment you do. Right.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but actually no, because that might help. But like, that's what I'm going to base my decision off of is these 5 symptoms. Right. And not take into account the rest of their life. But I think that that's sometimes what happens when the world, the society that we lives in encourages us to remove ourselves from our body and rely on external things to fix us. And
100%.
I think that where we are going to experience health, true health, is by returning to like what is between our skin barrier, which is all of it. It is our physical health. It is our emotional health. It is our mental health. It is our spiritual health. Everything that lives within these borders. And then of course expands, right? Like our spirit is larger than, anyways, we won't get into that. But like, if we are not paying attention to who all of us are, like, we're going to miss out. But again, society, when you're scrolling Instagram, it's all about that external thing. And I think the hardest thing in my career has been when people want me to give them a list of exercises to do. When they walk in and they're like, I just want to know what exercises to do to make me better. And I have an hour and a half eval to get to set you up on an exercise program or whatever for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Doesn't make no dang sense.
Right.
I don't know what you need. I have zero clue what you need. And I think sometimes I have just said that to clients. I've just been like, I don't know what you need. What do you think you need? And they're like, no, I'm coming to you. And I'm like, no, I can help. I can guide. I can facilitate conversations with you and your body, but I cannot. And I won't. I used to try because that's what PT world told me to do, is that I had to give. Now,
you had to give them the box diagnosis.
Yes.
And give them the box exercises. Yeah. And then maybe they got better, maybe they didn't, because maybe they were one of the people in the category.
Right.
And then maybe they aren't. And so then like, what do we do?
Right.
And that's where that's where the agency of our own discernment comes in.
Yeah.
When I say agency, I mean you saying this is or is not for me.
Yeah.
And that requires discernment, which is this for me or not?
Yeah.
Right. So, agency is the outward action on the internal discernment.
Right. And then, Sara Cate, so I'm going to take this a step further.
Take it.
So let's say,
what do we do?
Let's say that you decide that you're that these external things, right? You're just going to try to like, maybe you don't feel like it's for you, but
Mhm.
you let these external things kind of guide you instead of you guiding yourself.
Oh, we
That makes
have done
sense?
that.
Huh?
Have done that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
A lot. Okay.
And recently, unfortunately. But
Okay. What else do you notice about your life? Do you feel like you show up in the other parts of your life the way
no,
that you want to? Okay. Tell me.
no, 0%. So I was actually just, way to bring it back, Ash. So I had just said this to Ashley this
I got you.
morning. I did it to her in the last session, so this is deserved. Um, so ping pong. I was telling her that when I start comparing myself, and for me, it starts in body image, and I'll just be transparent. I think, and I feel like I'm not alone in this because I work with predominantly women, and those who identify as female, and it is at the tip of our tongue for most of us, that the first thing that we start to criticize is body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on social media and I was comparing and I was sitting with my body image of like, for me, the gateway was perimenopause. And what happens in our bodies, because I'm going to be 40 next year, and what's changing in my body hormonally, what that's doing to how my body is, the structure of it, the physical nature of it. And I went down a rabbit hole of comparison. And when I started going into that, in the coming thoughts and feelings over the course of a week or so, it bled into my integrity as a therapist.
Mm.
It bled into who I thought I was as a partner, and where I wasn't showing up to friends, and how I'm not living a full life. And like the criticism went down to almost like a spiritual soul level of, but it started from the body. And it was because I was looking outside of myself for reflection. And I was looking outside of myself for what I was supposed to look like, how I was supposed to show up, how I was supposed to feel. I was giving my power externally to everything around me. And I have been having to really sit with, but this is where growth is, right? Where I come back to, okay, Sara, if everybody else is the expert on your body, what do you have left? And I don't have a lot left. And so I was like, well, then it looks like we need to have a sit down.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do I need to feel like me? What am I missing? What am I not doing? What are the things that I love to do that I'm not doing? And for me, it's like getting in the dirt. So even this morning, I was like, we're setting an alarm and we're going outside and we're doing some gardening. And I did that for about an hour. And what that gave me access to, just mentally, and the clarity that came in, was what I brought to Ashley. It was like, wow, when I start to look outside of myself for my physical, for my emotional, for my mental truths, I lose sight of me. And I was like, I want to talk about that today or at some point. Right. And what it came down to, it was like, dude, came from me fucking scrolling on TikTok and me hearing, you should be doing Pilates, you should be doing X, you should be doing Y. And I was like, shit.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't know, like, thank God I have the tools now. But I think there's so many of us in this world that haven't really been given any tools to be like, what is good for me? What is for me? Remove the good. What is for me?
Yeah.
Right? Because running is not for me, but someone could tell me that that's what I need to do. Running has royally affected my body. And that's not for me. But if I was in some story and handing myself over to the world, there would be a community that would be like, running's the only thing. Is the only thing. And it is going to be your thing. It has to be your thing. Right. But like, what I feel when I do it and what it's done to my hip are really they're not, it's not for my body.
Yeah.
But I have to sit with the discomfort of that and the
Yeah.
reconciliation of that. And then the comparison of that, right? And
Yep.
so something I think that we have to learn how to do, and something that I work on every day with myself and I work on every day with my clients, is starting to reduce the factors that challenge our relationship to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is social media, typically, it's comparison, right? And it's not asking the question, what do I feel?
Yeah.
So if we start to remove whatever, maybe you're on a train with a clinician or a personal trainer, all the first way to start to discern if that thing is for you or not is you say, what do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And you might not know the answer to that right away,
Mm-hmm.
but to sit with, like, or if a bit of information comes in, you see a TikTok, pause the app and then be like, what do I feel right now?
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel activated? Do I feel like, oh my God, I got to do this. I have to go. I have to try this. Or do I feel like, I have some, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity is different than activation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And learning
Yeah.
how those two things move for yourself. If you
Yeah.
feel like almost electrocuted by something and you have to try it right now, pause.
Yeah.
Try that. Just try pausing. Or if something, you have some curiosity about something, be like, I'm interested in that. I'm going to do some research.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different energy, right? And this
Yeah.
is the way that we start to work with that relationship to myself. Now, again, it's easy to get lost in the thing,
Mm-hmm.
swimming out in the world of all the information coming in. And I forgot, I was like, Sara, you have just disconnected from everything you're feeling about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
luckily I had to recalibrate and I was able
Yeah.
to. But it is, I think, for the majority of us, specifically speaking for women bodies, it is easy to give our power
Mm-hmm.
away to the outside world about mind, body, spirit,
Yeah. And
and
what a, oh,
hard
go
to come
ahead.
back. No,
Yeah.
no, no.
And what a good example of how you literally can't separate them. They're not meant to
Yeah.
be separated. They're meant to be together
Mm-hmm.
and to guide you through this life that is yours, that is nobody else but yours.
Totally.
And so, it's I'm just like I'm just like thinking about all my clients because this is what we talk about.
Totally.
This is I think it's like also the greatest act of love that you can ever do is decide to like really support yourself in
Mm-hmm.
determining what is for you and what isn't, because
Mm-hmm.
she gave a very like real time, real life example of how seeing something on social media affected every piece of her,
Every part of my being.
every single part. And there are a lot of people who will speak otherwise, but we're not here to suffer. We're not here to prove our worthiness. We're not here to try to convince others that we
Mm-hmm.
are good. We're here to live a life that is fulfilling for us, and we get to define that. We're worthy just because we're here of a beautiful life. And what I'm going to
Yeah.
want as part of my beautiful life is going to be different than others. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the most amazing thing about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But if we continue to give our power away, we're going to end up in our older age
Sacrificing. Yeah.
thinking about exactly that, thinking about those sacrifices that we made
Mhm.
and wondering what if, you know?
Yeah. The
And
regret.
yeah, and we don't have to. It might be the message that we have gotten our entire life that it's like one of those things you just stay at your job because you're loyal, right? Instead
Mm-hmm.
of chasing what you really want to do, or you
Mm-hmm.
stay with whatever because either you're loyal or that's like what a good person does. That's what a good girl
Yeah.
does often if you're a female. Like if you're a good girl, you do this. Um,
Uh,
and instead of asking, is this for me? Does this
Mhm.
feel good in my body? Does this feel like something that I want to live with? And if
Yeah.
not, then then there is opportunity for curiosity for something else. It doesn't mean you blow up your whole world and it changes overnight. It just
Right.
means that you allow yourself the curiosity to see what else might be there.
Yeah. And if you have questions about how do you start to build the discernment to get to exactly what Ashley is saying, start with that just question of what do I feel? Right. And you might not know, but write down 2 things: confused, right? But like confusion now and discomfort now is going to yield what Ashley's talking about, is this like full life, because you're gathering information.
Mm-hmm.
If you're afraid to start it or afraid to try it, you're going to get to the end likely and be like, oh man, I didn't actually know. I didn't take the time. But the discomfort now, the questions now, give you what Ashley's talking about, this like full life of knowing yourself.
And it is never too soon, and it is never too late to start.
Never too late.
Never, ever, ever, because the rest of your days could be the freaking best.
Yeah.
You could better than you could ever even dream up right now.
Totally.
If you give yourself the permission to just be curious.
Be curious. And even me, I lose sight of it all the time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We all do.
Yeah.
I don't care what we do or how much we've done. We lose sight of it. And we have to, we just have to ask that question. What am I feeling? What do I notice? Does this feel for me?
Yep.
And if not, you get to say, I think I need something else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could talk about this for 9 years.
At least.
Minimum.
Wait, should we try? How much time do you guys have?
Let's catch a flight back to the mountain.
I know. I'm gonna be in Denver for a hot 12 hours. Not even. But
until next time.
Yes, until next time, my friends.
Take care of yourself. Ask the question, what do I feel?
What do I feel?
Just once this week. See what happens.
Okay, and as always, like, subscribe, share. Please
share.
We love it when people are like, hey, can you talk about this?
Yeah.
Or like, give us a specific scenario. Like, we love that. So.
Oh, yeah. I really want to do a call-in episode.
Ooh, very fun.
I don't know how they do that on podcasts. Our IT department, AKA Dr. Ashley, is going to have to.
And you know who my IT department is?
Google.
Google and YouTube. I have learned how to do so many things.
She's so technologically savvy.
Yeah. I also swear a lot.
Perfect.
Or I'll yell at them because they're talking too fast.
We love you. Please join us again next week.
Okay. See ya next time.
Bye.